Hey, that sounds good. Yeah. Let's begin with the word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we can be here to look at your word. Please guide us, our thoughts and our minds as we look into the scriptures. Help us to have the wisdom that we need to understand it and the courage to apply it to our lives. These things we pray in your Son's name. Amen. Well, I wanted to thank Bill for filling in for me last week. I was feeling pretty bad about this time last week. I really appreciate him doing, and I heard he did an excellent job. I think we'll move on from the topic of the tongue. Debbie told me I'd beat the tongue to death. So, we'll move on. I thought the next topic we would look at is that of wealth and money. The Proverbs have a lot to say about that subject, and I just went through the whole book and listed all the scriptures that dealt with that, and there were about 3 pages of them. So we can learn a lot. Wealth has to do with, it covers a wide area. It has to do with our work, how we gain wealth. There's good and bad ways of gaining wealth. What we do with our wealth is important. We know that it's a popular topic. There's several radio talk shows on every day that just deal with the subject of wealth and what to do with investing your money. One of a popular show several years back was Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. They even have a magazine, several magazines that deal with wealth and finances. Money magazine. All kinds of indications that in our lives, wealth is important. And the Bible has a lot to teach us about that. I'd like to start with some just general observations that the book of Proverbs has about wealth. And one of those is that wealth is uncertain. Look at chapter 23 and verse 5. Proverbs 23 and verse 5. Cast but a glance at riches, and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. Have you ever seen examples of that in life, where wealth just takes off like a bird, sprouts wings? Think of the stock market crash in 1929. There were a lot of people feeling very wealthy, and in just a matter of days or hours, all that wealth evaporated, and several of them jumped out the window. They couldn't handle it. There's been several books written about lottery winners, people who won more money in the lottery than this whole congregation will make in their lifetime, and in a few years, it's gone. So wealth is something that we can't count on. It's uncertain. Look at chapter 18. And verse 11. The wealth of the rich is their fortified city. They imagine it an unscalable wall. Why do the rich feel this way about wealth? How is Perry? Okay? If you have a lot of money, you can just purchase whatever you need. It gives you a sense of security. But notice that this verse says they imagine it an unscalable wall. Even a city with a wall isn't perfectly safe, is it? The enemy can climb over it or batter it down and what? Or go under it. Babylon or Nineveh, one of those cities. So we can't trust in wealth, and even if we are wealthy, we shouldn't take too much security in it. We need to realize that we're just fortunate in what we do have, and we've been blessed that can be taken away at any time. Look at chapter 11 and 28. Whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf. So here again, it's telling us that we can't trust in our riches. But I want to look at this second part. The righteous will thrive like a green leaf. What does that tell us? What new thought does that bring to the subject? Yes, Dennis? Okay. If the righteous are going to thrive, that means that God has something to do with it, that he's involved in this whole process. And we're going to look at that idea. Okay. It's a green leaf. Okay. Terry? Oh. Okay. Ida's saying that the only wealth we'll take to heaven is what we send ahead. And none of that's going to be physical wealth, is it? Terry? Okay, so if we really want true security, we're going to put our trust in God and not in our physical wealth. Because God's the only one that can make us prosper. Okay. That's right. We're in the top probably 5 or 10%, I'm sure. Oh, wow. Dorothy's bringing up a good point that all of us are wealthy compared to the world. And but we don't compare ourselves with the rest of the world usually. We compare ourselves with our neighbors and people closer by, and we don't always realize how wealthy we are. There's one other topic on this uncertainty. Turn to chapter 11 and verse 4. Wealth is worthless in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. Here it tells us that wealth is worthless in the day of wrath. First of all, Al. Okay. Store up our treasures in heaven. And that's kind of goes back to what Ida was saying, that what we send ahead of us to heaven is the wealth that we're going to have. And those are all spiritual things and righteous living. What is this day of wrath that you're talking about? Yes. Okay. I heard someone over here say kind of the same thing. The day of judgment could be the day of wrath. And that's definitely applies to this verse. What good is it going to be if we're wealthy, when we stand before God and we haven't put our faith in Him and feared Him? We're not going to bribe Him with anything. I think it could also apply to an earthly day of wrath, like if you committed a crime or something and you're standing before the judge, your money's not going to do you any good there either, unless you have a crooked judge, and maybe it might help. So wealth is limited, it's uncertain. It will do us no good in certain situations. This brings us to the idea that we need to put our trust in the Lord. Turn to chapter 10 and verse 3. 10 and verse 3. The Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but He thwarts the craving of the wicked. What do you make of that verse? Do righteous people never get hungry? Is that what it's saying? What is it saying? Carlin? Okay. Carlin is saying that a righteous person is satisfied just to know that God is on his side, that he's in a right relationship with God. Well, yes. Okay. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. That's the important things for us to hunger and thirst after. But, yes, Carla? Okay. Yeah, Jesus told the rich young ruler that you only lack one thing. He was a righteous man. He had followed the law, but he had apparently he had a deep love for wealth. He wasn't willing to give that up. That's probably hard for all of us. We spend so much time and effort getting money, and it's necessary that we have to do that we don't like to part with it easily. And you think this verse is saying that the Lord actually provides food for the righteous? Okay. Yeah, Darlene says that is talking about the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus says, "Do not worry about what you shall eat or what you shall drink. That God provides for the birds and the animals, and we're worth more than those birds and animals. So He's going to look after us." So I think this is generally telling us that God's going to provide for us. We don't need to worry about that. But not that there's never an exception. There are times when Christians have starved to death, but we need to realize that He is in control. He's going to look after us. Terry? Right? That's right. That's a great example. The Apostle Paul, if anybody was righteous, he was righteous. And yet he said that he suffered a lot of physical deprivations. Yeah. Right. If we have that attitude, then riches won't ruin us, even if we have riches. Did I see a hand? Bernie? Okay. Okay, and we're going to cover that subject, that God isn't just going to give us stuff if we're just laying around being lazy. That He expects us to work, and the Proverbs have a lot to tell us about work. And we're going to get to that too. And it also tells us a lot about the sluggard who doesn't work. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Faith without works is dead. God expects us to act. It's not just a mental faith. We actually act. Let's look at another verse dealing with the subject of putting our trust in the Lord, and that's over in chapter 16. Um, 16 and verse 3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. What does that mean, to commit to the Lord whatever you do? When you go to work, you commit that to the Lord when I'm out there nailing 2x4s together? Can I commit that to the Lord? And how do you do that? Yes? Yeah. Okay. So committing whatever you do to the Lord means that you're going to do the best you can. You're going to do the best job that you can. Larry? Okay. Okay. We need to ask what the Lord wants us to do. We can work for selfish motives, can't we? If we're just working to gain wealth and affluence and a soft life, that's a whole lot different than working so that you have resources to share with others, help others, to spread God's message around the world. Our work can be a noble thing. It's not just some drudgery that we have to go through to survive. It can be done for the glory of the Lord, whatever we do. Okay, I'd like to move on to another section. The Proverbs teach us that life isn't always fair. Look at chapter 14 and verse 20. The poor are shunned even by their neighbors, but the rich have many friends. Is that fair? That your money makes the difference in how many friends you have? Okay, the prodigal son, that's a good example. Okay. Okay. The prodigal son, when he inherited all that money from his father, he had lots of friends for a while, didn't he? People hang out with people who have money. Why do they do that? Okay? They're greedy, they're selfish. They're hoping to get a piece of the pie. That's a good point. Is that true friendship? Okay. What do you think they meant by that? Okay. Friendship needs to be something deep. A lot of wealthy people have an entourage that follows around with them. I think of Elvis. A lot of those people weren't really his friends. They were just there to gain from him. Al, did you? That's a good point, that even Christians can fall into this. If a rich man comes into our auditorium, we may give him more attention and more favors than we would a poor, shabbily dressed person coming in. Yes? Okay, a friend loves at all times, not just when you're up and having something to offer him. The true friend will come around when you're at your lowest. He'll be there to help. Okay, another way that life isn't fair, look at chapter 22. And verse 7. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Is it fair that the rich rule over the poor? Are the rich always better people with better sense or better intelligence than the poor? No. But for some reason, they go together. Finish this phrase. The rich and famous, that's one. What's another one? The rich and powerful. You never hear the poor and powerful. You always hear the rich and powerful. Why do the rich seem to have more power? Okay. Yeah, the company that you work for is owned by a rich man, most likely. And he has power over your life just simply because of his riches and his ability to influence things. Dennis? Okay. Yeah, okay, so the rich are the ones that hold the levers of power because of their influence, and just simply because they are rich, they can influence so many people and cause so many things to be done. In our country, it seems like the people who get into power become rich after they get into power. I've heard that congressmen are much richer after they retire from Congress than they are before they got there. Okay. So riches and power seem to go together. Did I see a hand over here? Yeah, Ida. Okay. Okay. Right. Ida points out that Jesus was born into a poor family, not a wealthy family. Jesus went about doing things differently than the world does things. He didn't use money and power to gain influence, but went about things much differently. Larry? Okay. Okay. People are tempted to take advantage of people for a lot of reasons. Get an advantage. Yes. Oh. Okay. 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 Judy's pointing out that sometimes when people don't have money, they borrow money so that they can get the influence that the rich have and get themselves in big trouble by borrowing too much money. Well, so far all of the verses we've looked at seem to be in favor of the rich, that they have the advantages. But there is a verse that says that things don't always go in favor of the rich. Turn to chapter 13. And verse 8. A man's riches may ransom his life, but a poor man hears no threat. What is this talking about? How does a man's riches ransom his life? Okay. Okay, sometimes riches can take over your life, and okay, it's the rich who have family members kidnapped because they have something that they can give to the kidnappers. Okay, just having wealth makes you a target of people who are trying to get it. So one advantage that a poor man has is he's not in as much danger as a rich man from those types of threats. Yes. Okay. Yeah, if you have a lot of money, you have a lot more worries just trying to hold on to that money and what to do with it. So, yes. Okay. The rich man and Lazarus is a stark example of the advantages of wealth and poverty. They may be an advantage in this life, but in the next life, which would you rather be, Lazarus or the rich man? That's a good point. Well, for the last 5 minutes, I'd like to think about the topic of that there are things that are more important than riches. And the Proverbs, there's a couple of Proverbs deal with that topic. Turn to chapter 15. And there's two verses together there that talk about the idea that there's something better than riches. And we'll just look at one at a time. Verse 16. Better a little with the fear of the Lord than great wealth with turmoil. What is that telling us? Okay, you're better off poor, or at least you can be better off poor. Is there turmoil that comes with wealth? Okay. I was thinking of you hear about a lot of families that are wealthy, and yet they don't love each other. They're always fighting and scheming, and they all have great wealth. They have everything physically that anybody could want, but what kind of a life is that? Okay. Okay. So money can keep us from the Lord. Terry? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to leave the impression that it's sinful to be rich, or that it's a bad thing to be rich. But it is. It is. We face more temptations. Yeah. Can, think of some rich people in the Bible. Yes, let me in the back first. Yeah. Okay. So in the Bible, there's examples of poor people and rich people that are faithful people to God. Think of some of the rich people in the Bible. What are some names that come to your mind? Carlin and then Mary. Okay, that's a good point. It's our heart that matters. Yes. Okay. Abraham was a wealthy man, and and Isaac and Jacob were wealthy. David was wealthy. Solomon was wealthy. Yeah. Job was very wealthy. And okay. Um, Cornelius, you already mentioned, was a wealthy man, and God heard his prayers. So, so okay. Joseph of Arimathea was a wealthy man, and he gave his tomb for Jesus. Dennis? And next week, we're going to talk about some of the practical ways of handling money, how you acquire money, and that type of thing. But we better quit there. Al, one more. Right. We're all taking the same amount of wealth with us when we leave this life. So it goes back to some of the first comments that Dorothy was making, that all of us are rich, and we need to keep that in mind and take the warnings here seriously.